All right, ladies and gentlemen, nerds and geeks, welcome back to the channel. Before we get started, make sure that if you find value out of today's episode, you like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the content that I post here on the channel. And if you dislike, then dislike and let me know what I can change for you guys in the future down in the comments. But with that being said, I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter now, but let's do this. All right, so picking up in Asgard with future Thor narrating and floating through Asgard as the darkness swallows him. I go to be with my family at long last. I go to hell, he says as he passes the burial sites of both his parents, his wives, and his children. There will be no funeral, nor songs for me, and this ruined rock that was the realm eternal will forever be my tombstone and testament to my failure. He feels that Asgard deserved a better king. And we know Thor, this stuff's just destroying him, like things that he really couldn't control to its fullest extent. And ultimately, he feels unfit to wield both the crown and the hammer of Mjolnir. Or the hammer Mjolnir. He felt that he just lived for too long and way too long to just see the end of all things. And as he gets carried up the steps and away, he's relieved that it's finally over. Until he wakes back up in his freaking throne! So he wakes back up on the throne and he's pissed. He comes to and he realizes that the room he's in is familiar and the throne that he sits on is too familiar. And as the Black Berserkers walk away, he yells at them to come back and kill him. And that the God Butcher won't even give him the victory of death. And that's just back and forth, just going and thinking you're dead, only to appear back in your throne and just pissed off. But now back in present Earth, Thor face to face with the rather interesting god, still asking him who he is. And the god tells Thor that he's just the god who lived after coming face to face with Gorr, and his name is Shadrach, and his home was the diamond moons of Ogogo, and he was the god of wine and waterfalls until the god Butcher came. As he was forced to watch the Berserkers kill his entire pantheon, he begged Thor to every single day just kill him. And instead of granting his wish, he cut his eyelids off in an artistic style that forced him to watch, as he couldn't help but feel that the insides of the gods that he had seen slain were a beautiful sight. And I find that to be kind of weird, but he admits to having gone insane or mad at some point throughout that whole entire process. And barely escaping while his god friend was being murdered, he says that he had hid in this cave because he knew Gorr wouldn't step foot back inside of here, and that it was a sacred ground to him. Thor just asks, where is he now and how do I find him? With his never-ending rage, there's no need to look for him because he will just find us all pretty soon, and you'll see how pretty your friends are without their skins, is what Shadrach tells him. Thor tells him that he will keep him safe, and provided that he tells him everything that he knows. And Shadrach hesitantly mentions Kronux, and Thor questions him at first and asks him what Kronux is. And Shadrach begins to leave him alone, tell him to leave, just leave him alone, and to insist that Thor leave. And Thor tells him that he will just keep him safe. All he just has to do is just step forward and go with him. Now, finally, in Omnipotent City, Thor calls for the librarian, and the two just talk back and forth about the halls of the All-Knowing. And when they stumble upon the librarian, he's beaten and almost unconscious on the ground, just moaning and crying. Then down the hall, with torches in hand and burning every book in sight, stand the Black Berserkers. Then a whisper in the dark tells the god of thunder to wake up. And just coming to, Gorr tells Thor again that this is not the time for sleep. And now they're in the cave of the god Butcher, and Thor is now chained up, and Gorr telling him that it's not the time for sleep, but only the time for suffering and talk. And all Thor does is just growl back at him and telling him to take the chains off and he'll show him what suffering is. And Gorr just replies to him, telling him that that's not the kind of that's not the sort of talk that I had in mind. And then creeps up on him as he says, you will tell me all you know about the gods of this world and every last friend you have, where to find them, and then what you see as I kill every last one of them. No matter how many chains you wrap me in, I'll tell you to only go to hell, Thor says. Gorr is not exactly the new guy on the block when it comes to torturing, and he tells Thor that once he tortured a god of torture, and that even he cracked and spilled his knowledge of where his people were. And now fighting to break free from the chains, Gorr tells him that his chains have held the gods the sides of mountains, and that they're not going to be broken very easily. And he goes on to say that they all start out so confident, being that they're immortal. And until I show them what their mothers, their lovers, and their infants are, you are all nothing more than meat and bones, just like the rest of us. Thor then tells him that he'll chew his eyeballs out as he begins to struggle even more. And I never get to take my time anymore with so many gods needing attention. Gore starts to explain. Except for the immortal who asked if he was a god. I indeed took my time, he said. And all gods have a breaking point, and it took 9 days to find his, even with him being made of stone, and I'm hopeful you can keep me entertained for at least half as long. And with the torture and screaming then continuing, back at Omnipotent City, Thor battles the berserkers, and with Shadrach losing his mind, he bites one of them in the neck, and the librarian finally stands back up and smacks one of them on the back of the head with a book. I hope that was a very, very heavy book at least. And lovely friends, God of Thunder, the librarian sarcastically tells him. As they continue to fight, Thor thinks that they're only there to hide something from them, and just as he remembers Kronux, he asks the librarian and shouts about a god named Kronux, to which the librarian just tells him that it's not a god, you idiot, it's a world. And now he's pointing at the book that holds the knowledge, and it's burning over in the distance. King Thor, now crawling and struggling to move, gets impatient about sitting on the throne any longer. As he crawls, he tells himself that he'll crawl to his death if he cannot walk. He then calls for Mjolnir, and the Black Berserkers can be seen trying to lift the hammer. I hope that that's something that we see in the movie. I would laugh my butt off. And the hammer goes flying across all of Asgard as he catches it, saying, "For Asgard, one last time." Well, maybe. Moving on to see him smash the ground with enormous electric force. Young Thor still screaming and struggling, and present Thor reading the scroll or book of Kronux. Now an even more annoyed librarian calls out to the water pixies and asks Shadrach if he's a god of sprinklers. To which Shadrach just responds that he's nothing more than the god of songs and somersaults, which we know can't be true because he told Thor he was the god of wine and waterfalls. And so this dude's a little twisted. Or is he? I don't really know. But now walking out of the flames, Thor says the book is burned to ash, but he read what he needed to as he flies off to Kronux, the Palace of Infinity. And now picking up on the world of Kronux, we see the massacre of the forces of Gore, that the forces of Gore brought to the beings of Kronux, dragging and carrying every last one of their lifeless bodies along, with Gore telling them to bleed them well. We're going to need every last drop, Gore says to one of the gods, as he then asks if it will be enough. And the god responds that it'll just have to be because there's literally no one left on the planet. And Gore tells him that he could just cut his arms off and his legs if he'd like, and to which the god just responds, "No, that'll be enough." And Gore says, "Yeah, okay, that's what I thought." And he then warns the god that if he doesn't return, his beast will rip him apart, and he demands the god to show him his magic. The god begins to open the pool of forevers, using the blood of the gods of Kronux. The god tells him what he did was monstrous, and that they only ever needed a few drops to travel the time ways. And we learn that the gods there were essentially timekeepers and shepherds of time, and had never really harmed anyone. Gore tells them that over the years he's learned that there are two types of gods, ones that harm and the ones that simply just do nothing, and that he is unsure which one of the gods, the god types, deserves more of his wrath, and that in the end it truly doesn't matter because the trait they will all have in common is that they will all be dead. As he descends into the pools of forever, picking back up with Thor getting impaled by a berserker and landing on the floor, he asks Gore what he's waiting for, and that he's already won and beaten Thor, and that he should just kill him. He then also says that he's too old, too tired, and just can't fight anymore. And then a huge explosion of light appears out of nowhere, and it was freaking present day Thor up on top of the hill. And all he does is ask where the god butcher is as he stands there with his hammer in hand, chin high, looking like a badass. Oh man, I'm so excited. The story's so good. And that's pretty much where we leave off for this episode. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think so far. Let me know what you guys like, what you guys what you guys don't like. And be sure to like and subscribe if you find value out of today's video. And if you didn't, that's all good. Just let me know down in the comments what it is that I can do to make it more enjoyable for you guys. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay tuned for part what's coming up, part 5, I think. Wow, yeah, geez, we're kind of flying with the series, but freaking love it. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see everybody in the next video. Peace.